After 3 years of being rogue from Tudor watches, I rejoined the family. I bought the Black by 54. The Black Bay line is controversial. Some people like them, but some not so much. I don't know if it's because of the design of the Black Bays or because people still choose to see the crown brand inside of them. And although I'm not a big fan of the Black Bay line, I found super exciting the Black Bay 54 release. Yup. Tudor this year made a very smart thing. In the accelerated world where the brands are rushing to pump the market with new watches with various complications and sizes, they miss to do one relevant thing for us, the watch lovers. To sculpt them in a way to hug with harmony our wrists. A thing that Tudor is looking carefully in, and after the specific tailoring of the Black by 58, downscaling the caliber for its purpose, the brand came up with an even way more comfortable and techy diver. The Tudor Black Bay 54 is the living proof that less is more. And compared to the 58, although they look similar in design, the brand had the knowledge and the vintage model to inspire from, succeeding to remove and add volume strategically in order to craft and offer a more accurate vintage-inspired design. I say more accurate because this is not a one-to-one vintage-inspired model. For sure, the shapes of the vintage ones were different, they had different profiles and ratios. For example, the vintage case had a thinner case profile, with a taller bezel and a boxed Hasselite glass, where the 54 has a thicker case profile with a narrower bezel height and a discrete boxed sapphire crystal. But all in all, the case design is the most accurate out of the Black Bays. So accuracy in this case means size, and this leads to the following points. Is the Tudor Black Bay 54 a small watch? There are rumors among the content creators saying that 40 or 42mm is the right diameter for a diver, because Omega Seamaster is 42mm and the sub is around 40 or 41mm. Okay, I do not disagree. However, we have to understand the difference between a vintage-inspired diver and a modern one, because it's a completely different thing. The reality is that the Black by 54 has 37mm in diameter, so yes, on paper it's a small diver. Size-wise, the model is smartly made to respect the diameter of the original model, the Oyster Prince Submariner 7922, but because the lugs are wider and the watch case is long, unveiling more metal, offers quite a bit of presence on the wrist. The 20 with 17 taper of the bracelet with the long clasp helps as well. But what is funny, on a NATO looks even bigger. So from the presence perspective, I wouldn't be worried. This can be worn by bigger wrists. I am a tall guy and I love how this watch wears on the wrist, but I agree it's definitely on the smaller size. However, I appreciate it because it's faithful to the original one size-wise, exactly as I appreciate the Explorer one, and because 35 or 37mm was considered normality back in the days. This is what really matters to me when I choose an accurate vintage-inspired model. My problem is the social pressure which defines when a watch is small or not. Do you know what's the single rule that really matters in wristwatches sizing? Wear whatever you want as long as it makes you happy and you're comfortable with it. That is the single rule that really matters. The Tudor Black Bay 54 is a 360 degrees diver, or a GADA watch if you like. A watch that can be worn in any circumstances, as a diver, as an elegant watch, or a daily beater. It matches all the context in my opinion because it is lightweight, thin, small and adaptable thanks to the bracelet features. Personally, my sizing preferences are changing constantly. While I was in my vacation, I was looking for a small size comfortable diver. I was looking for something new because I'm used to wear my wristwatches during all my activities, during sleep as well. And sometimes a 42mm Omega Seamaster cannot serve all my demands. Specs-wise, the watch has a bit of presence because it is beautifully tailored with a great profile. In my opinion, the 54 wears like a 38mm case rather than a 37, and this is happening because of the lug width. So the 20mm width combined with the small dial diameter stretches the case towards the lug tips. And it is very interesting compared to the 58 how different the case silhouettes are, because the dial diameter of the 58 is bigger, where the ends of the lugs are narrower, hosting 20mm between the lugs. So the angles of the case shape are more aggressive towards the lug tips, and as the feeling provides more like a rounded volume as a primary view. where the 54 having a smaller dial diameter, the case angle is smaller, offering more like a rectangular view on the wrist than the 58. As a parallel, initially I wasn't bothered by the 36mm Explorer with 19mm between the lugs. However, later on I realized that I cannot make it as adaptive as I wanted. Where in regard to the 54, initially when I bought it on the bracelet, I was thinking to order as extra the rubber. But honestly I have so many good rubbers and NATO's alternatives to complement the watch, so I don't see the need to buy the official rubber anymore. What I discovered on the dial while exposing it to different lighting contexts, we understood that the surface of the 54 is dark black compared to the 58 contrast, which is grayish. However, when exposed to strong light, the dial transforms from dark black to brown, with a discrete sunburst towards gold. And overall the colors of the dial and the gold accents are better represented because of the darker surface, but also because it's isolated completely by the black bezel and the metal which surrounds the dial. This is a hidden accent that really helps the surface to communicate with the gilt golden accents and unveil a warm tone on the dial compared to the rest of the case tones, which are cold. Very cold. A new important element for the Black Bay is the crown, which changes completely the identity of the 54. If the Black Bays in general have a wide and a flat crown, with the same coinage pattern found on the bezel that looks like a cap, the crown of the 54 is way smaller, fits better the case proportions-wise, has less teeth, and the top surface is more embossed, making the crown to look like a crown, and closer to the 54 Tudor Submariner. Finally, the bracelet starts from the lugs with a vintage identity, narrowing with 2 riveted levels, keeping then the same width until it meets the clasp. So the more the bracelet advances towards the clasp, the more modern becomes, losing the connection with the vintage-inspired case. As negatives, the bracelet competes size-wise with the watch head because it's lesser tapered. But because the bracelet is wider and less tapered, featuring the T-clasp, it helps the watch to have more presence on the wrist. And that is important because it helps the watch to look more masculine, like a 38mm watch, and that is very important. A bad example is the Rolex Explorer 1, which besides having 35.5mm in diameter, has a serious taper and a narrow clasp, making it less masculine and more niched. But a trade-off here. If you're looking for a heavily inspired diver, the bracelet doesn't help, but if you're looking for a comfortable vintage-inspired diver with a modern adjustable clasp, this is it. I personally appreciate the modernized bracelet because it is too good. With the T-Fit concept, which offers the ability to adjust the bracelet without removing the watch from the wrist, it's excellent. By simply pressing the links against the clasp to shorten the bracelet, or you can pull the end of the clasp to make it larger. This is actually an important element that makes this model the best Tudor that money can buy. So if you're looking for an awesome in-house Tudor with a classic design and strong vintage roots, this is the right watch for you, because this model works very well on a 7-inch wrist and below the size. The price is very good, starting from the design until the features offered, which beats any Tudor from their collection, including here the Black Bay 58. So that is it. Hope you enjoyed this in between the lines review, and I'm really curious to know what do you think about this Tudor Black Bay 54. Please let me know in the comments below. And as usual, if you're new around, please consider subscribing for future episodes. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching, and until next time, be brave, but stay safe.